All right, everybody, away we go. Welcome to today's call. It is Friday, a frigid Friday here in Boston, about 18 degrees on January 17th of 2020. We expect that, but also a beautiful sunshiny day. Always excited to do sales training with you all. And I'm definitely excited about this concept that we've been pursuing at the Realty Classroom for a long time. And as 2020 comes in and we're in these early sales training calls, a reminder that what is old is really the most important thing, meaning guidance. I was talking to my brother before the sales training call here, and we were talking about cracking the code a little bit for the Boston market. And in the Boston market, like the Seattle market, I was talking to Duran yesterday, there are things that are marketplaces that are really good where agents have really gotten a little bit lazy. And they've gotten used to being able to order take and take these listings and sort of go through the motions. And they don't know what it's like to be in a tough marketplace where things like negotiation and actually physically trying to work hard to make a market for a property. I use these terms all the time and I get questions all the time. What do you mean by making a market? Well, let's just go back to marketing. As salespeople in real estate, you're always going to be up against this perception that it's marketing, marketing, marketing. And clearly marketing is important. There's no doubt about it. But when it comes to selling a home, especially on the sell side here, when you're representing the listing agent, it's important to recognize one thing, and that is it's your job to actually sell it. And if you get lazy or you get taught incorrectly that this is some sort of a reactive business, then you're going to get hurt when things get tough. You can get away with it when there's a good marketplace, right? There's no doubt about it. You can list it, you can be close, and the rising tide will find your boat. But when things begin to correct, that's when you see some marketplaces that haven't experienced a lot of expireds, things start to happen like that. Because you can no longer guess, throw the horseshoe close enough, win a prize. It doesn't work like that. You actually have to have a strategy going in. You have to explain to folks that there's a whole process, not just marketing. And I'll tell you why I want you to understand that is because as things get evened out, tougher, whatever may happen as you go forward in your marketplace, you're going to have to at least explain things better. And that's why I said old is new again. And that's guidance. The most important thing that you have as a real estate agent is guidance. Like I was saying with my brother, he was saying, you look at all these places like Zillow and Redfin and all these things, they're disruptors in the industry per se, and they're going to change the business. And out goes the real estate agent, I can remember. Well, what? That didn't happen at all, right? And in fact, Redfin is a discount broker with technology layered on top. That's all it is. So when you discount guidance, that's what you're doing. So there's always room for somebody who's really good at something. So as salespeople, quote unquote, you have to recognize that primarily you're a guide. You're not selling something without guiding. And in fact, if you get really good in the guidance business and you're able to walk somebody through a process, the sale will happen as a byproduct. And I want to keep repeating that over and over as a theme so that you stick with me here on these calls and you understand specifically what it means to be a good guide where the sale is a byproduct, okay? Now, again, you know, especially if you're in the mastermind or you're a member of a team that's in the mastermind, you know that we keep rotating in the campfire calls every 2 weeks. We rotate in and around the concept of the buyer guidance course, the seller guidance course, and then, of course, for you all, the agent course, and that's guidance. So we've productized our guidance so that when we get into a sales situation, and somebody's really actually ready to hear what they need. See, what they want is property access, right? They want to see pictures and details of properties that have sold or are for sale. That's what they want. And they can get that pretty much everywhere. But as you begin to give them that kind of information, you begin to have an opportunity to layer in your guidance on top of it. And your guidance includes your insight. And the more experience you have, the more insight you might have. But for all of you, rookie or veteran alike, it starts with understanding that your product is your guidance. And don't let any force from the outside have you think that you're not worth or not worthy of winning business through that guidance. And it has not been discounted and made go away, okay? Guidance is more important than it ever was, I can make the case, because everything that's happened on the internet has begun to confuse the consumer. When I meet consumers in the field, the number one thing that I find is that they are indeed very confused. And the reason they're very confused is because there's too much information. So the guidance that we offer actually walks them through all of that information to help them root out what's most important to them. And I think that's a really important thing for you to remember, okay? So as we go forward, just remember guidance, right? Now, today, I don't know that anybody has sent me something. If you have, you can tell me, give me a heads up as I open up the mics. But I would like to see you be proactive. Okay. One of the things that happens in coaching and training is that you end up having to give an opening speech like this to warm everybody up. Then you hope somebody's going to ask their question and stop sitting in the bleachers waiting for somebody else to get guidance for them. I'm asking you, especially if you haven't participated before, to ask your question. Okay. It's really important to ask your own question so that I know exactly what's on your mind and I can deal with your specific situation, okay? Real important to do. All right, so here we go. I'm going to open up the microphones. Remember, mute your mic if you're in a really noisy spot. Otherwise, I have to put you in what I call voice jail, okay? All right, here we go. Who's up first? Who wants at it first? Somebody take a crack at it. Hi, Paul. Go ahead, bud.
Hey, Danny, we're here.
Oh, yep, good. Egan, hang on. If you've got something, let's go to Paul first, and then you can tell me about our anecdote that you and I were going through last night. Go ahead, Paul.
Quickly, in regards to the buyer guidebook that we just had done, we have a new listing, had 3 open houses this weekend. How do you discern when to give that book away? If they just say, no, we don't have an agent, that's obviously you want to, and they seem motivated, I get that. But like, oh, well, we're working with an agent, but he or she is only showing us 2 houses, we're not 100% committed. Or, I mean, obviously we could go on, very bold, varying circumstances.
Sure.
But I mean, it's not free. It costs a lot to produce. So what do you do? I mean, how do you do that at your
Yeah,
own
that's a super question. And relatively easy for me to answer. So let me just say it this way. I hear you about cost, but more so, rather than just us leaning on the cost, let's talk about the ideal avatar that you're hunting for. Okay. And as an agent, you are hunting for the possibility to help somebody, and you can't help everybody. We talk about this at the mastermind level, as you know, in marketing all the time. But the key here is we're looking for opportunity. And so how do you define opportunity? Well, if you're really thinking strategically, Paul, you're thinking, who's my ideal avatar? Because I would love to match them up with my ideal package of information that serves them the best, right? So I think that's really what you're thinking about there, right? So when you think about it that way, Paul, the easy answer is the reason for these formulaic things that we have, where you're saying, okay, look, I have them sign in for a reason, because I'm trying to begin to identify, is this somebody who would be a good candidate for me, right? As my avatar. So the first thing is that they have to be unencumbered, right? There's no other agent that has an encumbering relationship, meaning they're in a buyer-client contract, or they just simply identify somebody that they're working with. We want to be careful of that. So the first vetting would be that easy. When they filled out the sheet, this is why I think it's really, really important to act as the maitre d' in the beginning, or the hostess, to sit there and pay attention, up front, at the front of the house, to sit there and say, hey, thanks for coming to the open house. The seller has asked that everybody signs in. If you don't mind doing that, they would appreciate it. And when you're done doing that, the feature sheet for the property is right next to it. So I do think what helps me distinguish it when I do it is I play that role. So strategically in the house, I'll sit there, and sometimes it's a little awkward because the room is not right there. And people say, hello, yeah, all over here, come on over here. And so we bring them in to where we think we can gain control. Now, in Seattle, I know one of the other challenges that you've had is you might run an open house where you get overwhelmed with traffic, right? So it becomes harder to do that. And then you're saying, but in the same breath, Danny, aren't I supposed to be leaning in with 1 or 2 buyers? Yes. So it becomes a little bit tricky. Maybe you pull in an extra agent, you guys work something out, and whatever it is, right? So now let's go back to after that's done. Because I'm sitting right there and I can see it, one beat that I would tell you I definitely have learned is I've learned to shut up while they're writing, okay? Because I really want good quality information. And if I don't say anything while they're writing, I'm more likely to get them to fill it out thoroughly and accurately, which is great, right? So it's just really helpful if I just be quiet in that moment in time. So I do. And then when they're done, I say, hey, were you folks looking for yourselves? Sure, yeah, we've been looking. Oh, great. How's it going? Right? How's the search? And I'll see based on the reaction. Are they struggling? It'll give me an indication. Are they new? It's very similar to telemarketing, Paul. Right? It's very similar, only it's kinesthetic. I'm in the house. I'm live. I'm ready to go. Right? So I'll ask that, and then I'll gauge their willingness to engage me at that point in time. And I know you're really good in the field, and like most people at the mastermind are excellent in the field. So there's a natural connection. There's a natural ability for great salespeople in this business to just gain rapport without really asking for anything yet, right? Now, as that goes along, they might split up. If they're a couple, there's kids, and they start to move in different directions. And you can start to gauge whether or not there is or there isn't interest in this particular property. So if I see that they're unencumbered, if I see that they're engaging, if I see that there's a sense of seriousness of purpose, and they tell me a little bit more, they were willing to tell me a little bit more about why they're doing this. We talked about this with Tony this week, right? The timing and motivation in that first beat after an expired call. It's the same thing, Paul. I'm in that mode to see it. And if I feel that there's an opportunity to solve a problem, okay, this is the key point here. If I sense through my conversation, there's a possibility that I can solve a problem for them. And I don't mean their global problem of finding the right house. I mean, in that moment in time, they are out, they are looking, and they're monkeying around with these apps and all these other things that they're confused by. I can say, hey, you know what? To make your day a little bit easier, I put together some information that I think will be helpful to you. What it includes is a bunch of other properties in this general area, in this general price range that are available for now. There's a picture, quick description, and the address. So if you want to go Google Map it and Waves or whatever you use and you want to drive by, I think you should while you're out and about, because it'll give you a better feeling for the neighborhood. But more importantly, what I included in there was also some sold properties, so that while you're doing some drive arounds, you can actually see what the money bought too in this price range. So that'll give you an idea for the real marketplace. Then I tucked in an overall market update, and of course I put in there my buyer course, so it can help you get organized as a buyer. So now that's the gift moment, and because I'm there, I'm explaining what they would want, which would be easy and organized access to properties and pictures of details, or pictures and details of those properties. I know that's what they want. I know they want that digitally, so why wouldn't they want it physically when they're in the heat of the moment of doing some drive arounds? And a lot of people a lot of agents will say, oh, well, they can get that anywhere. They're on their app. No, you're missing the whole point of service. You're missing the whole point of guidance. The fact that we can give a whole survival kit for at least that day while they're driving around, that triggers the law of reciprocity. And that has them lean in. And then I can look back and say, hey, I just want to make sure you got me some good information, because I can take a quick peek and see if anything else came up when I get back. And you're just kind of making sure I have the good information. Now, at that point in time, if I sense that they're really getting no guidance and they're lost, or they really start to go, whoa, geez, thanks, and they come really back in, say, what's in there now is just a quick look at what's going on. But what I could do is set you up on MLS so that you could continue to get these things directly from the source rather than the app. And that'll keep you up to date on what happens, just in case you don't see anything today or you're not ready to buy today. So then I'll look back and make sure that that's there. So there's the whole conversation. But of course, I don't know what's going to happen from time to time in the house. I will also tell you, though, what I've said to Laura is we should never be going into a public venue like an open house and not be prepared with all three packages in our case, right? So the neighbor comes in, they're interested in selling, and they kind of want to just see what this house is like. And I can sense that, or I get into a conversation and say, oh, you're thinking about selling? Hey, look, I happen to have another seller package with me here. What's included in there is a bunch of pictures and details of properties that we use to price this one out. And then there's also the seller plan we're using here as well, and a market update. You might want to take that. And if you want me to just, take a quick peek at your house, you just let me know. So we want to be ready no matter who walks through that door. I think the presumption is obviously the buyer's going to come through. So we want to be there with other information, presuming that there's no interest in the house. Of course, I'd love to sell my listing right there and then, but we know that that is not the highest probability. Does it happen? Yes. Is it exciting when it does? Yes. But I don't want to miss the opportunity to serve in that moment and then not have them lean in. Because essentially an open house, I can't believe how many people like rail against them. It's one of the greatest levers of time that I find when I want to put my cap on for working in my business, especially if it's a good, a well-priced house, because the neighbors are coming because they're thinking about selling. The buyers are coming because they're thinking about buying. And in those, that realm of people, I'm ready to give a mini on the hood of the car presentation, but more importantly, give them the appropriate package that I keep saying is like a Trojan horse in a good way. When they get it home and they open it up, there's a copywritten instruction letter telling them what they've just been given, what it means to them, and how to take action with us. And if I give a package away and I've captured that phone number, the next thing we're going to do is give it to telemarketing and make sure they check in to see what's happening. I might give it to Laura because it's already up, a level in the field, and it has to do with the house that she's client managing. But that would be my most thorough description. And then, of course, I have had agents come in to meet me or say hi or look at it, or agent, somebody getting their license. So I also said, give me the agent package too. So no matter what the opportunity is in that moment in time, I am prepared, but I am going to feel it out first based on how I vet them when they come through the door. Does that help?
Yeah, 100%.
So I think it's exactly what you do well on the phone. You open it up, you ask those questions. But again, the key point here that we've learned over the last 12 months is that this gift that is actually organized and self-instructions are included in that copywritten cover letter. Hey, thanks for coming. You might be thinking about selling. Here's pictures and details of properties. Here's the 7 steps you need to get the top dollar. By the way, we'll be calling you to make sure this makes sense, right? That kind of concept. Just you reapply it to the buy side and you reapply it to the agent recruiting side. You have this core piece that I started the call off by saying, I think we keep, I don't know the right word, but diminutizing our own value because we think it's like this muscular fight and my resume and all that crap. People really don't care about your resume until they care about like using you, right? That's when they make that judgment. What they care about is who's going to help them in that moment. And the minute you can help them in that moment by giving them other properties that are for sale so they can drive around and see those addresses without screwing with their phone. But more importantly, you go the next level and you give them those solds. Now you're adding insight for free. That's super valuable. And that's a very big change in what happens, right? So instead of marketing at them, we're supporting them and empowering them so they lean back in and we can continue the relationship deeper depending on what level of service they will allow us to give them. So there's as thorough an answer I can give you, but I just think people are crazy. I say it to my own agents. You would be crazy not to every weekend beg us to go into one of our listings and set it up as a retail shop just like that for other sellers and buyers that you don't know and follow these simple instructions we give you on how to express the seller program, the buyer program. It's just insanity. I mean, as a retail kid, it always seemed like the most obvious place for me to start. Everybody wants to rush to the internet, move back, and, I've got so much more leverage on the internet. No, you don't. No, you don't. The whole idea for being on the internet to then convert it is to get face-to-face. And you're telling me for 90 minutes on a weekend, I can be face-to-face with people? Come on. And on top of that, I can help my seller make a market for the property, which I've told them we're good at. It's too good of an opportunity. Yeah? Got me?
100%. I got to give props to my agents. I have 3 of them that are doing 3 90-minute open houses this weekend at a new listing we have. So they're listening to you. Yeah.
And the key is to be prepared. Look, I use this expression because I used it with my son Marty in hockey, right? Is that when he got off the ice and he has to do that off-ice training, and as a 16-year-old he goes to the gym, the first thing is this herky-jerky movement towards the weights as I was teaching him the workout, right? I said, no. Everything that you do, there should be a beat where you get athletic, okay? It's the same thing in business. If I pull up to a showing like we did this morning, I sat in my car for a second and got athletic, meaning what? I stared back at the house. It was a second showing. I thought through the scenario. I remembered, the first showing. I walked through what was important to those buyers and that agent. And then I went into the house. It's like just a beat to get athletic. So I think when your agents go into these open houses, You don't get there 10 minutes before the thing and you're running through flipping lights. You get there well in advance and you set your retail storefront up. Okay, first of all, set up the product. Make sure the product's ready to go. The lights are on. If there's music, you have the music going to set a little environment. You get there early. Then you look for that spot where you can be the hostess / maitre d', where you can see traffic will flow in this particular way, and you can be there set up on a kitchen countertop, a table, whatever it might be, where it's convenient and comfortable for them to come in, be told to sign in, just like a maitre d' or hostess would say. They do it for you, right? But you come in, they say, thanks for coming. Appreciate you coming to the open house. The seller has asked that everybody signs in. This is your controlled show. I'm talking to your agents now. You must control that flow. It is a living funnel that the seller wants to know about, and you want to control for your own benefit as well. So if you get everybody to sign in, you'll know. Somebody will give you I'm just the neighbor. No problem. Sellers asked that everybody sign in. If you don't mind, just jot your number down. Your name down. They'd appreciate that. They don't care if the neighbors come through. In fact, we want you to help us pick your neighbor. Ha, ha, ha. Right? So you play the game where you're in control. Don't let the tail wag the dog. That way you're able to vet who is on that paper and what is the appropriate next step with them. Oh, you have an agent? Oh, you're working with, Deb? Oh, she's a super nice gal. Awesome. We'll take the sheet, take a look around. Let me know the questions. And of course, if you like it, we'll be in touch with Deb. Right? So whatever the scenario is, I am making everybody feel comfortable. And if I can go further with a seller, because he's nosy and he's thinking about selling, he comes in, hey, you know what? No problem. In fact, why don't I just give you some of the stuff we used to get this one started? Some pictures and details of properties that sold, our 7-step course. And then, of course, in there, Paul, you want to help them with the copywritten letter a little bit to have them understand that this is an action set, right? And it's generic and it can be put in there, that this is a direct response, direct mail marketing kit being used in a live scenario. So they should have them for buyers and sellers. You don't want to I can't stand this whole buyer's agent stuff. It drives me bananas. Like all of a sudden we're supposed to shut down the most important side of our brain, which is to get sellers to do business with us, the company, the group, whatever it might be. They go in thinking there's a possibility for both. I'm athletically ready for the buyers. I'm athletically ready for the sellers. I have the package for both. And it's not some gratuitous package about me, company. It's about them. And now you are not only uniquely set up for the open house, you are uniquely prepared to open up what typically is a competition-less lane. I don't mean you won't have competition for the buyer, for the seller. I simply mean if you all can find me people who will actually give a plan with some detail to somebody for free, then let's give that person a reward and invite them into this mastermind, right? That's the most important thing to understand, is that the minute you can give something unique, you have a real unique proposition, selling proposition, not some nonsense bait and switch thing. You have a real helping, unique selling proposition that's straightforward and they appreciate it. So that was for your agents, Paul. I don't know if your agents have any thoughts, questions. I know Andy's usually here. Whoever else is here, I don't know. Feel free to have them weigh in. Yeah, no? Cool. All right, who's up? Who's next? Let's keep rolling then. I need a question.
Hey, Danny.
Go ahead, bud.
It's Chris.
Yeah, bud.
Have Mary, have Mary, our new telemarketer, on the phone.
Hi, Mary.
To introduce.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. We're excited to have you.
Well, I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, super. Any thoughts as I was going through that? I mean, obviously, I know that you're going to be on the telemarketing end. I know you have this super strong background in politics. God bless you for that one, right? Being able to make those calls is impressive, right? So what are your thoughts as you look at getting on the phone here and you have a little bit of an understanding that the differentiator is what I just said, that we do productized guidance, and that's simply what we want to get out the door first? What's your reaction as a professional telemarketer with the history that you have to that?
Well, actually, I kind of come at this with two angles. One from the, as you already said, the political side. Also, having a background in real estate since 1979, and totally agree with you on the whole buyer agent, seller agent scenario. It never made sense to me either. So the thing that I kind of find I think is very important, like you actually have already stated, and I agree 100% with, is the fact that you kind of have to look at it more athletically. You have to, with every call, you have to kind of have an initial thought process of what's going to take place, and then also how to navigate the individual so that they want your product.
Yeah. Well, let me speak to that. Okay, that's a tricky spot there, right? So I'm going to say this again in case you came in late here. My reference to getting athletic comes from having my son go into the weight room off of the ice and reaching for stuff and not taking that beat to get athletic. So in this case, when you're on the phone and you get athletic, it's the idea that what can differentiate you and make you really seem like the professional in every step. So, the trick is, you said the word get. How do we get them to like us? How do we get them to want us? And I've always had a dilemma with that. In real estate, it's what do they want? Most people will never listen to you until you give them a heavy dose of what they want. So let me reiterate as you come into this on the phone and combine your real estate experience. The phenomenon of the modern age, the digital age, the disruption was that what they wanted was no longer proprietary to us. You didn't have to come to see the booklet and then see online in the office. Suddenly, Realtor.com 1995, 96 puts it all online, and what was once proprietary is free to them. That's the real phenomenon of the internet. Most things, businesses got disrupted because we had to give away, quote unquote, our best stuff for free, which at that time and for many years was access to pictures and details of property. Well, now that goes away, it actually opens up an interesting opportunity. See, all along, Mary, they needed our guidance. Even though they thought they were coming through the door just to get access, ultimately it's like, well, how do I go see these properties? And if I like one, what do I do? How do I write up an offer? How do I find a home inspector? How do I do all these things? Well, that's where realtors don't take a beat to say, well, shoot, that's my value. But can you imagine picking up the phone and saying, hey, you need us? You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, right? But that's actually where we're trying to arrive, to have them understand that they need guidance, that guidance in real estate or anything else that somebody else doesn't do every day is super valuable. It really is. You have to have guidance from people because otherwise you are going it alone and you don't know what you don't know. I know hubris and arrogance. I believe in coaching. I believe in it for my kids. I believe in it for myself. I believe in it. You find somebody who has made distinctions that you haven't made, who has experience, they have put the right information, the right order, and you learn from them. But it's very, very difficult for anybody, a hockey coach, a realtor, an insurance agent, to sit there and go, you need me. You need the guidance.
Right.
So you have to give them that dose of what they want first and serve them for free in facilitating that. So the tough part in this business is this facilitation mentality in the beginning is we're simply organizing the freebie stuff, right? We're organizing it better than an app could do, better than another agent could do, because people are lazy. Everybody wants the sale without the work in all businesses. So if we can just lean in and be first, how can I serve you mentality? That's your athletic stance on the phone. The minute you go to pick up that phone, I'm going to call people. And in the telemarketing realm, you know there's a problem that's identifiable. You have this expired. You have this for sale by owner. You have this probate where somebody died. Those are divorce. Those are some very, very obvious examples that I can sit and say, okay, I'm calling all these divorcees. They're going to be high strung about this. They're going to wonder whether the wife sent me the husband. Who is this? Who are you after? Who's taking advantage of me now? So I have to get athletic, and I have to understand that that's what I'm going to arrive at. That moment in time, I'm going to arrive at that. And if I equally as a telemarketer sit down in the second hour and move over to expireds, albeit there's a pain point there that they didn't get it done, they can't move on, they're starting to question the whole thing, I have to reset myself as if it's almost another exercise in the gym and say, it's similar, but it's not quite there. So this whole concept of saying, Mary, we're going to provide you like a triage nurse with a survival kit in your hand. And the survival kit at its core is the same thing. In other words, it has the seller course. It has the pictures and details of properties that sold so they can make sense of it themselves. But essentially, it's a do-it-yourself kit. And I think that's really the important differentiation, is that in the past, you knew it as a pre-listing kit or just a free list of homes. But I think it's so much more than that, right? I really think it's like, look, I'm going to give you this information. You can take this home, and with or without me, I can leave you better off than I found you. I can give you the properties in this neighborhood. You're looking here, you're looking in this price range. I've vetted it. I've printed it out, that old fashioned stuff called paper that everybody likes to hold on to because it's hard to look at everything on your phone. I really want to get you started off in the right direction, understanding the power of that differentiation. They have to get what they need. You'll have to serve them a little bit in that way before you can send the Trojan horse in, where the benefit in a good Trojan horse, the good soldiers to protect the house, right? The course, which is the productization of guidance. Before I ever begin to guide you, let me give you some productized guidance in the form of a seller course, a buyer course, right? Let me give it to you, and you can figure it out a little bit by yourself. That's what to do with or without me, okay? Then once we cross that Rubicon and they're leaning back in a little bit, hey, thanks so much. Nobody did this for me. Well, we know, right? Nobody did this for me. But tell me a little bit more about your situation. Maybe I now can cross that Rubicon and go from giving you information on what to do to adding some insight and begin to show you how to do it and how I would help you do it. See that subtlety?
Oh, sure. Yes. And, you know, it seems to me that a lot of it has to do with listening and picking up on the nuances.
No doubt. And on the phone, after that first beat. So let's break this down, okay? Let's pretend, because I know Chris is going to start you off similarly to Autumn, et cetera. Expireds are the most obvious thing in our business where there's a pain point where we could offer something of value right out of the gate and sound different from the 35 other people that are just looking for the business. And I see this on LinkedIn. I use this as an example on LinkedIn because I put so many videos up on LinkedIn. I get a lot of requests back to connect. And I am telling you, the people that reach out to me in the messaging platform, there is only one gal I can think of that said, hey, I saw that you do this, and I don't know if you knew about this resource here. It's a pretty good one. You should check it out. One person. Everybody else does nothing but cut and paste some nonsense solicitation in there. One guy today, and I actually give him a little jab back. Okay. Yeah, we do capital equipment financing. So let me know about your equipment needs. So I said, huh? Question mark. I'm in the real estate business. And the reason I bring it up on a call here today is not to hurt that person. I mean, maybe I could have helped them by pattern interrupting. Did you even think about what you were doing? Did you get athletic before you posted this or your VA posted this in a no-brain way? I mean, is that really your business model? And if that's the majority, Mary, imagine arriving. I've always heard this, oh, everybody's calling expireds. Everybody, really? What are they saying? Because if they're all doing that, holy moly, that's like walking into a wide open victory when nobody even checks me on the way to the net. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, it's ridiculous. So all of a sudden you arrive as the only one that's offering this guidance. I don't even know. I stumble over getting so excited. Like when Autumn started, she couldn't believe how many people had been underserved from the start or were being underserved, right? So that first opening line, Mary, it's Danny Griffin calling from Griffin Realty Group. The reason I'm calling you is because I saw your beautiful house online and I noticed it didn't sell. So I wanted to send you some information that will help you sell it the next time. May I do that? If you can find one other person that does that, like I said, invite them to this group because they'll get it, right? But that's a quick beat where I have that like 7 seconds. I'm telemarketing. I'm interrupting their life. I need to let them know who I am, how I know about their context, and what I have for them. Because if it doesn't have a what I have for them, what's in it for them, IFT, I like what Dean Miller said, not what's in it for them. I mean, what's in it for me, because that makes it introverted to us, extroverted. What's in it for them?
Right.
Why are you picking up the phone and calling them? Right? And it's because you want to get them a package of information that's a DIY kit to help them at least figure out what went wrong. Right? So if you can get that beat out of your mouth, now we have Mary the pro who has this wide open lane. Just like Paul was asking me, it's the same answer I would give. In an open house, you vet those people, you see who's willing to engage in a conversation about timing and motivation in their situation. So if, Mary, you get past that first thing and you get permission, wonderful. Could I can confirm the mailing address is this? Excellent. I'll get that in the mail to you and I'll call you next week. I don't ask permission to call next week. I'll get that in the mail to you and I'll call you next week to make sure it arrived. Period. It's the completion of this exchange. I have something for you. I just want to confirm the data and I want to get it out to you. And I'm going to book myself to call you next week to make sure you got it. Done. I put a bow on that. Mission accomplished. Because when you send that positive Trojan horse out to them, it has instructional letters and layers of the cake where what they want, pictures and details of properties that sold around them when they did it, and then a 7-step seller course that explains the correct formula. Now that's a DIY package. With or without Chris, they could actually begin to make some differentiation. But now I want to turn you loose, but I want you still formulaic. When you call those people back in a week, if that's all you could get out of them, the idea is to try to get Chris in because you've initiated the law of reciprocity. If I send you that package, you genuinely got it. It was genuinely helpful. There's a differentiation where I say, now you're different from everybody else that called or is still calling. Okay? Because they got it. And it's helpful. And we get compliments on that approach all the time. So now you would go into a seller qualifying situation that's deeper. Hey, I was thinking to myself, I mean, it does really look like a beautiful house. How come you were trying to sell this thing in the first place? And so now they start to lead into a conversation about themselves and their situation because you've professionalized yourself. See what I'm saying? You've just professionalized yourself. You're the only one that's really trying to professionalize first, then ask. Now, if they were chatty in the very first call, then I would say go for it then. But if they're not and they're standoffish, wait till the package arrives, then do it. So you'll have both opportunities. But the formulaic approach is, I saw it really was nice looking. Why are you trying to sell it? What's going on? And really conversational. That's what we want to turn all of you pros loose. Be a human in that moment. And then a further deeper qualifying so we see if it's right for us at that moment in time. On a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you really? You're not a 10? How come not? Because we find in my office that if they are not a 10, they are not ready to truly listen to the guidance, right? They're not. See, somebody who decides that the move must happen is open to hearing about guidance, which is really where we cross over information to insight and instruction, right? That's where it crosses over. Right. So if you can get into that next beat on the first call, it's simple questions. Hey, it looks like a great house. How come you're trying to sell it in the first place? Conversational. Then they go a little bit deeper. Well, what would you say on a scale of 1 to 10? How motivated are you really? Now they give you something less than a 10. We love 10s and scale breakers. Our current client said she was a 15 because she had a house that she's already tied up that she's going to lose. The other people had moved to Tennessee. The other gal she has to get back to New York. She has no family. She's alone. Those are 10s or scale breakers. And I know everybody says, oh, I would love that too. Yes, so go looking for them because they exist in all contexts. Expireds, for sale by owners, probates. There are those people out there that are so ready for guidance and you arrive at the right way at the right time, they're going to lean in and at least give you that opportunity. So those two beats are probably the most critical as the second steps. You follow that?
Yep.
Okay, questions?
Yep.
Thoughts?
So right now I don't have any. My thoughts on this makes perfect sense to me. Actually, maybe kind of think back to with the GOTV, the political aspect of GOTV of the telemarketing side of calling is the fact that the concentration of people that you call versus the people that you leave on the table, and how many candidates and individuals that work in their GOTV leave people on the table because they don't engage those people, which is why they're not coming out.
Yeah.
And so clearly, I think that kind of is reflective of what you were just saying in terms of when people actually call, when agents are calling, or however their office is set up, they're not really engaging those people, or they're leaving people on the table because they think, oh, well, they can't be that interested.
Yeah, well, that's fascinating. Fascinating because, again, I go back to this terminology about getting athletic, getting your legs under you, remembering why you're doing this. Because the minute you don't, you're trying to do it on muscle and not technique. And that's why I keep using a sports analogy, because I'm around sports a lot with my sons, in particular hockey. When I see somebody not get that stance correctly, when they're off ice, on ice, soccer field, whatever, you can immediately see they're trying to do it on muscle. And in this business, the biggest problem is agents try to do everything on muscle. That's any small business. Any small business.
Right.
And why a lot of people will say, well, oh my gosh, I would never want to be a cold caller. Well, you would certainly call people that you didn't know if you had something of value to them that took the pressure off you having to be that person, right? The reason why in sales we're that person is nobody ever thinks, if I'm going to call this person and interrupt their life, even if it's business to business, right? What could I offer them of value? And what do I know about them as they pick up the phone? And that's why knowing context in sales is really important. How do I meet these people? Do they have a pain point in real estate that was caused by an event that I could help with? Think about the probate approach, okay? Everybody knows, and this goes to my wholesalers too. I teach a lot of folks in this group that are both wholesale, they're buying properties as well, wholesale, and everybody's in there with this muscular attempt. So that makes you just like everybody. And if you want to be really successful in anything, it can be a little bit different from what the crowd's doing, assuming that the crowd's getting the same old result, right? And if it doesn't feel right to you, it's a golden rule. Would you want to be treated like that in sales? And the answer is no. Okay, so think. It doesn't mean that you're being non-aggressive. It's very aggressive to pick up the phone and try to get these packages mailed out. It's very aggressive. It's because it's proactive. It's not reactive. It's just that how does not have to be all muscle. In fact, that technique is not sustainable, nor is it predictable over a long period of time. Why? Because it is in direct proportion to your energy. So when you were in a call bank or a group where you were all calling out for these political, situations, you have a small window of time where you have to get that voter out there. But you still can take that beat and say, what's in it for this voter? Can I just say, even if it's for my candidate, how about if I just said, look, I know the election's coming up pretty soon here. What we'd like to do is send you some information in the mail that would compare both candidates side by side and what they both believe in. And that would help you make a more informed decision either way. May I send that to you? Permission marketing. I mean, does anybody in the political world, does anybody in the insurance world, does anybody ever take the beat to get athletic and think what is really helpful to this person to inform them so that they can do it themselves better? Now, of course, they won't, because most people are so darn busy. They're uncomfortable doing something they don't know. So eventually they're ingratiated to those that fed them the right information to make a better informed decision, and they're more likely to call. Yeah, I can't tell you probably how many people go into a voting booth when you were calling them and they pull the trigger for somebody because you at least called them and at least spent some time talking to them about their political motivations and interests, right? Just because you did that.
That's exactly right.
Right?
That's exactly right. That's right.
How uninformed, it's too much information. And we're supposed to go into a voting booth and know everything that's going on, right? Whereas if somebody picked up the phone the 2 weeks before an election and said, could I send you some information that would break down, all of the questions on the ballot, as well as a side-by-side comparison of what they believe, and then you could make a good informed decision. I'm not even asking you for my candidate's vote. I'm just simply asking you to consider where they are side by side. Now, of course, if you're calling into a targeted audience, you know that that target audience is most likely to vote for a candidate like yours. Well, now you're safer to send that in, right? And again, this is just not rocket science. But if you start on muscle, you got to make 50 calls, an hour into this place there, Mary. And if you don't, then we don't hit our numbers. I'm telling you that's wrong. That's what's wrong with every business. If we would just think who's most likely to be receptive to the information that I could send them that would empower them to make an informed decision so that they're more likely to come back my way above and beyond all my competitors and give me a shot. That's it. It's identical in politics to real estate if you think about it that way.
Right.
Get me some recordings.
Absolutely.
Yeah, get me some recordings of you. I cannot wait to hear you take that experience, knowing what I just said, and I know Chris has already been teaching you that, and turn you loose. I think you're going to be a smashing success because I think patience. If you can make political phone calls, to get voters to the booth, you can do this in your sleep.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Awesome. Well, you get me some recorded calls and we'll listen to the consumer down there in Kentucky and we'll hear both ends of the conversation, which I think, becomes, ultimately, this is all great theoretical stuff. It's not theoretical for me in my office because we do it. We listen to recordings. We know what they say, but it's all theory for you until you do it for yourself. And we hear that other side of that good old Kentucky conversation down there.
That's right.
Awesome.
That's right. Look forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. Tony, you want to say something? Sounds like you're trying to chime in.
I do.
Oh, Terry, there you go. Sorry, I saw Legenda.
Yes.
I thought it was Tony. Go ahead, Terry.
I know. I'm using my personal phone because I'm at the gym. I'm getting athletic and working at the same time.
I like it.
Super fast. I have somebody that told me an expired that they don't want to find an agent over the phone. They'll go find someone and hung up on me.
Say that again. They don't want to hire an agent again?
They said, I will not find an agent over the phone. I'll go find one in person, and hung up. I want to send them a packet still.
100%. 100%. You just caught them at a bad time. They want to do something. Now you write a handwritten note. Say, I don't blame you for not wanting to hire somebody on the phone because I wasn't looking for that. What I wanted to do was send you this package. Here you go. Now I'm going to call you back to make sure you got the package and that I empowered you. Right? Period. I love it. Go for it. Because
that's
again,
how I feel.
yeah,
Okay.
well, for sure. Because if they look at, here's the other thing. There's no such thing as a perfect, systematic, or formulaic approach. This is that creative moment where you use your intuition. Are they the avatar? In other words, are they living in the area where Karen wants to do business at the right price? And they certainly sound like they're motivated to do something. They're frustrated. There's a pain point, but they still sound like they're motivated to do something. The idea is send in the horse, right? Send in the horse, because remember, the copywritten cover letter speaks for you. You don't even have to get all that out on the phone when they're frustrated. Just get it to them, let them receive it, give them enough beats to receive it, and then follow up and get them, right? But a nice little handwritten note,
Exactly how I felt.
a nice little handwritten note on top of the copywritten letter. Don't throw that out. It's very, very formulaic. It's an explanatory copywritten letter that's direct response, meaning if they're really motivated, you might turn that outbound mailer into an inbound call. That's when you know you really have your avatar, right? But in the meantime, let it do its job. But a nice little handwritten Terry note on top that says, hey, we talked briefly on the phone, and I don't blame you for not wanting to hire somebody on the phone. But I wasn't trying to get hired over the phone. I was trying to get permission to send this. I thought you'd benefit from it anyway. I'll call you to make sure you got it. Boom. That's it. Terry, signed Terry. Yep.
Can I just add something to
Of course. Go ahead, Laura.
Like my initial reaction to hearing this was to go bring her the package in person.
Cool.
Because
But here's the
doesn't
problem.
want it.
But here's the problem. Terry's in one state, Karen's in another.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Never mind.
no, good. That was my assumption. but I'm going to take what you said because that's come up a lot. Will Daly's been talking about that a lot. I forget who mentioned it yesterday, maybe Lee on the mastermind. 100%. If you want to really be bold enough to take the time, and I think it's again, if we have a small geographic avatar and that's the person, say, hey, I'm the voice on the other side. And since you won't hire anybody over the phone, I wanted to deliver you what I was asking to send you first. I'd like you to just have this package, but I want you to see my face since that's important to you. For sure, flip the script that way all day.
Yeah.
Good suggestion,
Okay.
Lauren.
And if I was there,
Yep.
if I was there, I am definitely bold enough to
Oh,
go
no
do it.
doubt. Terry,
It
we
was
know you.
part of my drive to,
Yeah.
he hung up on me. I'm like, this is more of a challenge I want.
Yeah. Well, look at, again, I don't want this to, I would love to think that over time, when there's enough volume here, all of you are getting more inbound calls after the package is going than you're making outbound. That would be the dream come true because it's been so set up correctly. It gets delivered correctly. The instructions in the letter are so like, call us back, right? That type of thing, right? So that's leverage at its ultimate. But in the meantime, you could starve to death unless you put the knife in your mouth and you dive over the side of the boat and you go get your fish, right? So I'm all down for that. Good stuff, though.
Yeah, I just can't hop on a plane.
Yeah, awesome. Go back to your workout. All right, listen, who's got another one for me? I got a little bit more time here. Let's do another one. Anybody have an outside sales challenge, a deal challenge? This is a good time for that one deal-itis problem or something that comes up. Chris, you want to pick up where we left off last night, or somebody else in Ottawa? What do I have? Anybody want to role play? Anything? I'll take anything. About 10 more minutes left.
Yeah, nothing to add more conversation last night. That guy's out of town, and I sent him a message. We're meeting on Monday anyways to pick up further the conversation.
All right, good. Excellent. Excellent. You know, Chris, I will just share with them all what we were talking about last night, that Chris had an interesting opportunity, and this will be painful for him because we'll rub salt in the wound a bit, but he already gets it and he's tough enough to handle that. Number one problem for salespeople is not usually face-to-face, it's follow-up. The identification of somebody who has a problem that you can solve, even if you started off right, it's the segmentation of your list to remember where those people are in your database, whether that's a physical database, or a digital one. Follow-up is everything. So Chris ended up doing business, or will do business, with a developer who ended up being able to buy a 10-plex in Kentucky direct from the seller, where Chris had a conversation going but never followed up. And again, I understand why he didn't follow up, because he felt that the opportunity wasn't there. So it highlights a point that for the salesperson going forward is that you want to understand you're moving somebody along an assembly line in the conversion part of your business, where a lead is a lead. You don't know much about their timing and motivation, which is why I was helping Mary today. Be prepared for that, to understand, why are you really doing this? Do you really want to go through this? And secondly, on a scale of 1 to 10, go deeper for me. Are you at the chart or above? Right? That tells you motivation. So if Chris sensed it wasn't there back then, one of the ways we would go back today and do it again was saying, why are you selling this 10-plex to begin with? On a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you? Instead of interpreting, well, he was talking about these goofy numbers and he was talking about, yeah, so what? That's why we have these piercing questions as time goes on, that we stay athletic. We repeat that formula for success. We don't start doing it on muscle and rambling. Well, I kind of guessed and I did it. That is exactly why people are stuck in a linear mode for business. And at the end of the year, salespeople have a similar target. It was up or down based on external forces, meaning the economy, that type of thing, or internal forces, their level of energy. I got sick this year. I got wiped out for a month. I couldn't go see as many people. So they never thought exponentially like a database. How many people was I able to identify, that aren't ready today? And I didn't, cry in my soup. I just simply gave them something of information. I set up some continuous stuff that would go to them. So I sewed a safety net between now and when they might be ready. And then I had some follow-up, human follow-up beyond that. It's not rocket science. But if you don't take a beat to think about that kind of way for the future, then you're everyday micro-focused on who's now. And that gets you that one deal-itis. Who can I close today? Not that I don't have one deal-itis this week. I want to know who my next deal is. But I also want to know how fat my pipeline is. Am I going out to anybody else? Have we met with anybody that's still making a decision? All those things, as far as the entirety of the pipeline, gets you exponentially growing. And exponential is not what you think. It's not some weird, bizarre, massive jump. It can be as little as 2 deals out of 1. This is why I said, yikes. If you don't understand the basics of exponential growth in real estate, let me explain it. Get one listing, do open house after open house after open house, not just to sell it, but to find a buyer and a seller. Kate did an open house on one of my listings. And I don't know if she's on here today, but I think she had about 4 or 5 sides she built off of that, meaning she built a mini book of business off of one open house. Well, that's exponential for the company, simply by taking something that could be taken advantage. We already had it. I'm listening to this book, if you want to hear a good book on business and exponential versus linear growth. It's called Exponential Organization. Think Uber, right? Think Airbnb. Think all those types of things, Waze, the automobile mapping system. They all took advantage of existing technologies to leverage their growth. So in our case, if I already have a seller, I can leverage that myriad ways. I could also push it around on social. I could do an open house. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get other business from that one listing. So that's why I say to people, look, one of the most important things is to understand how to get listings from your friends and family and sphere, and then from people you don't know. And as you do that, to think that those are the points of leverage upon which you can exponentially grow, because you're not linear. Okay, did this one sell it? I got another one, sell it. No, I got this one. I marketed this one. I open house this one. I found other people. I put them in the database after I made an offer. That's what it sounds like to be able to scale your business up in real estate. And it starts with listings. That's why I implore you all, understand how to get the listings. It's a key piece if you want to exponentially grow in 2020. All right, final call. I got anything else? Anybody?
Hey, Danny, I got a quick
Go ahead,
question
Danny
for you.
Northcutt. You got the last spot. Go ahead, bud.
You had mentioned at your open houses you want to be prepared to meet buyers, sellers, and agents.
Correct.
You have a package for the agents. What's in your agent package?
The agent course. You have it. And if you don't, you'll
Okay,
see me.
agent course.
Yeah, the agent
Print it
course.
out.
Yep. And Danny, it's a good question because we did that expansion call the other night. You can go back and listen to it. It needs more. They all need a better cover letter like the seller one has been adapted, because I want it to be a self-serving package. When you leave with it, it needs self-instructions. What to do with this, what it means to you, what to do next. Okay. So I'll be talking more about that as we go forward. Excellent question. The core though, Dan, is remember, the basics of the package is the productization of the guidance. Okay. The magazines.
Thank
You got it, bud.
Hey, Danny.
Yeah. Go ahead, Paul, real quick.
I totally spaced that expansion module call last night. Is it recorded?
Yep. It's up on the Facebook group. You can see it there.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, guys. See you later, everybody. Good work. Go out and practice this stuff. Mary, I'll be looking forward to some recorded calls so we can help you with that. Good work, all. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, everybody on Facebook for tuning in.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, have a good weekend, all.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, you bet. My pleasure.